second-borns, and I'm gonna rub my eye a lot, cause for some reason, whatever, whatever allergy I got here in Fresno is in my left eye. It's just running all day and just can't stop it. I don't know what it is, but anyway. So in the Hebrew culture, or language, shall we say, we have firstborn and secondborn. Now, every family has a firstborn. Anybody here a firstborn? You are, and you are, and you are. Okay. So then everybody else is a secondborn. All right. Okay. It doesn't matter how many you have in your family. Right. You're considered a secondborn because it's about function. All right. So the firstborn function in Hebrew is righteous judgment. Okay. The secondborn function is mercy.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's why you firstborns all complain to your mom and dad. You never let me do that. Well, when parents have a firstborn, they set the bar really high.
Yeah,
right?
they do.
After that, they put the bar on the floor.
Yeah.
And they don't give a crap do whatever you want to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So the firstborns complain a lot.
Yep.
You know? They're all into righteous judgment. Well, they're not into righteous judgment. They're just into judgment.
Yeah.
They're just like, I didn't get to do that, you know?
I resemble that remark.
Yeah. There you go. So that's the way that goes.
Yep.
Now, the Hebrew word for firstborn is bakor. And it's translated firstborn, it's translated eldest, and a few times it's translated chief. Right? The Hebrew word bokeru is an Israelite firstborn. So you know the difference between an Israelite and an Israeli?
No.
It's about 45 pounds. Israelite.
Like.
I guess you kept looking at me. I got
it.
In Greek, it's prototokos. We actually use the word in the English language. We use prototype, which is like the first thing of an invention or something like that. So that comes from that word, Greek word prototokos, firstborn, but it is the first of something, that sort of thing. Now, in Hebrew, the firstborn is not gender specific. In other words, we're going to read it and it'll say him and his, but it could be her and hers. It's just the way they didn't want to write him, her, or his, hers, that sort of thing. So, all right. So think of it that way. So the father, Deuteronomy 21:17, is to acknowledge the firstborn by giving him, her, a double portion of all that he has. For he, her, is the strength, beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his, or I would say hers. Now, with that double portion blessing comes responsibility. And the responsibilities, once they reached age, was family income, land production. In other words, they determined when to seed, when to till, when to harvest, that sort of thing. They had to solve sibling rivalries. I think the most common one is when Joseph went to visit his brothers and they wanted to kill him. Remember that? And then Reuben, the firstborn, stepped in and said, no, we're going to sell him to our cousins, the Midianites. And the other brothers had to obey the firstborn. All right.
Wow.
They had to distribute the inheritance equitably. I found this interesting in the culture. They taught Torah to the other children. In other words, the father and mother, the grandmother and grandfather taught Torah to the firstborn. And then the firstborn taught it to the rest.
Wow, interesting.
And that's how they learned it so well. Is when you teach it, obviously you're gonna learn it. You remember Paul even commented on Timothy that he had learned Torah from his mother and his grandmother, right? So he would have been the firstborn. We don't know how many were in his family, but he would have been the firstborn. The other thing is that the firstborn had to obey Yahweh's callings. In other words, they didn't follow in their father's footsteps. They had to, whatever Yahweh wanted them to become or be, that's what they had to do. And the family had to give them up, shall we say, to the firstborn. The firstborn double portion blessing could be lost in two ways. Pardon me. It could be lost through selling it. You remember in Genesis 25 that Esau sold his firstborn double portion blessing to Jacob, and we're living with the tensions of that decision even now in our time, right, politically, so to speak. And then the firstborn double portion blessing could be lost through misdeeds. So we go back to Reuben. Reuben slept with his father's, a couple of his father's wives, and he lost his double portion blessing. He actually lost his name eventually in the tribal inheritance and was replaced by Ephraim and Manasseh. James 2:13 says that judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Serious. Then it says mercy triumphs over judgment. All right. Now, it's interesting to me that in evangelical world, they don't believe that means salvation. But we never hear the word sanctified used without the person being saved. We don't hear of any wicked, nasty, evil people called sanctified, right? So in 1 Corinthians 7, we read this: for the unbelieving husband is sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified through her believing husband. For otherwise your children are unclean, but now they are holy. All right? So here in the West, we still have our problem in marriage. Our problem is this: we see a husband and wife, we see a man and a woman. Yahweh sees one. And because he sees one, mercy triumphs over judgment, so the sanctified one covers the unsanctified one. If you read the rest of the chapter 7, you'll read that when they're divorced, then they're not covered. Why? Because he's now seeing two. While they're married, he still sees one.
Wow.
All right?
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of people in heaven don't know how they got there. And he'll say, go thank your spouse. You know? Now, in Exodus 22:29, it says, do not delay giving your harvest and your vintage. Give me the firstborn of your sons, daughters. All right, so even your harvest, you brought the first fruits. That's the word we use in the West, are first fruits, firstborns. Even of your grapes, right? But it also applied to your herds and your flocks. So you had to keep track of who the firstborn was in your herd and who the firstborn was in your flocks, because they belonged to Yahweh.
Wow.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, all the children in a Hebrew household they used the word ransomed. I'm still trying to trace that down, figure out why they used that word. But when a child was born, they gave money to the tabernacle or to the temple. All right. The firstborn child was ransomed with 5 shekels, or get this, 30 pieces of silver.
Yeah.
Now you get Judas Iscariot, all right?
Yeah.
You see what he was doing. He was trying to use his birthright to buy back his betrayal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the priest said, no, can't use it for that. So he threw it on the floor of the temple and went out and hanged himself. It's an interesting thing to even think about. Probably a message in its own way.
Oh, goodness, yes. Yeah.
All right? That sort of thing. Now, Adam, from the Adams family,
Never saw it.
is called the firstborn. Now, we know he wasn't born, he was created, but he was functioning as the firstborn, which was righteous judgment. All right? So as long as he and Eve were walking in obedience, righteous judgment was being, shall we say, manifested to all the people. Right? And when he disobeyed, the world lost righteous judgment. I mean, it was a horrific loss when you think about it.
Yeah.
We think about what was added because of their disobedience. We think of sin, we think of illness, we think of wars and strife and disobedience and divorce and, you know, all kinds of negative things were added because of their disobedience. What we forget is what was lost. We lost the manifestation of righteous judgment.
Right. We sure did.
And we don't have any in the Old Testament. Think about it. You got Moses, right, who's the world's historically greatest prophet, killed an Egyptian. That's not righteous judgment. You got David, a man after Yahweh's own heart, kills Uriah, sleeps with his wife Bathsheba. Right? I mean, you got all these Old Testament guys. Think of Samson. He was an Israeli judge. He didn't do a righteous judgment thing in his whole life. Totally jacked up, crazy dude, just acting like an 18-year-old teenager his whole life. Around killing people, sleeping with whomever, whatever. And he's a judge in Israel. So you don't see righteous judgment in the earth. It was amazing. Now in 1 Corinthians 15:45, you have the first man, Adam, became a living being. The second Adam, a life-giving spirit. Isn't that interesting? So you have this comparison contrast between the first Adam, who was simply a living being. He could never be more than that, right? You got a second Adam who is what? Life-giving. Not just a spirit, a life-giving spirit. Who in this room says, you know, of all the things I am, I'm a life-giving spirit?
No.
Yeah, we're not there. We're just glad to be alive, right?
We're on
Much
the
less
outside
give
side.
life to others, right? So it's amazing. Now, in the genealogy of Matthew for Yeshua, it starts with Abraham and it works its way down to Yeshua. But the focus is on David and Solomon, because it's presenting to us a royal genealogy, right? Down through the kings of Israel, that sort of thing. In Luke 3, it starts with Yeshua, and it goes all the way back to Adam. Isn't that interesting? Here's the thing, and I didn't do this research, some really smart person did, but everybody in that lineage except Adam in Luke 3 are secondborns.
Huh. Wow, really?
That's interesting.
So their function is what?
Mercy.
Mercy.
Wow.
So Yeshua's whole lineage
Wow.
is what?
Mercy.
Mercy.
Wow.
And he's the second Adam, which is
Interesting.
mercy. All right?
Wow.
So the Bible tells us that. He came into the world in Luke 9:59. I like how it says it, 9:56. For the son of Adam did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. So that's so cool. Now in Mark chapter 8, we have a pictorial metaphor of this first second-born idea. So they bring this man to Yeshua, and he's blind. All right? So it says that Yeshua, having spit on his eyes, which is not healing methodology. Don't be going around spitting on people's eyes, all right? His DNA is divine. Ours is full of bacteria.
There you go.
All right, so don't be doing that spitting on the eyes thing, all right? Having laid hands on him, he said, what do you see? And the man says, I see all men as trees walking.
Right.
All right? Now, you got to understand the culture, because in the Hebrew language and culture, trees are people. So let me give you some examples. Psalm 1. A righteous man is what? He's like a tree planted by the river, right? You have the oaks of righteousness. You have the 70 palm trees, which are the 70 elders of Israel. You have myrtle trees, which are the ones that bear fruit. You have the evergreen in Isaiah 55. Their leaves don't drop, that sort of thing. Then when it comes to Israel, you have two trees that represent Israel. You have the olive tree, which represents spiritual Israel, and you have the fig tree, which represents political Israel. And you'll remember that Yeshua only curses the fig tree, political Israel. He doesn't curse the olive tree, spiritual Israel. Because you and I are grafted into spiritual Israel, according to Romans chapter 11, right? So this man is touched, and he sees all men as trees walking. So he sees all men as righteous. The question is, are all men righteous? No. So Yeshua lays hands on him again, second time, and he looked up and he saw all things clearly.
All things clearly.
All right?
He could see
You have to
clearly.
have that second born. You have to have that second touch. That's what produces discernment. Before that, or without that, you're going to see things through the eyes of judgment, and there's no righteous judgment yet. So you don't see it the way it is. Now in Luke chapter 10, Yeshua is making his way from the Galilee to Jerusalem to be crucified. But he doesn't make it like a straight shot. He just meanders all He goes to villages, he does miracles, he does sermons. And then he comes on the east side of the Jordan, he comes to this place. So in Luke 10 it says, now as they went on their way, Yeshua entered a certain village where a woman called Martha welcomed him into her home. Mm-hmm. Now, the word Martha in Hebrew is lady. That's not her name, that's a title.
Huh.
All right? The lady of the house, we would say, or the man of the house, ish, right? So the Bible never tells us what her name is, ever. Isn't that interesting? We won't know until we get to heaven who she is.
Wow.
She's just the lady.
Yeah.
And everybody called her that. Even later on when her brother Lazarus dies, she's called the lady, Martha. That's how she was known. So she must have been a very gracious, welcoming, warm person in the village, because that's what they called her, the lady, Martha. All right. She had a sister named Miriam who sat at Yeshua's feet and listened to his teachings. However, Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to Yeshua and asked owner, Adonai, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Command her to help me. But Yeshua replied, Martha, Martha, lady, lady, you are worried and distracted by many things. Few things are necessary. Miriam has chosen the best part, which cannot be stolen from her. Now, when I was a minister, a pastor, I always, when I preached this text, I always made Martha the bad girl and Miriam the good girl. Because I didn't understand the culture, you know. And when you don't understand the culture, you make it say stuff it's not saying, you know. So when it says that we came to the village and we were in Martha and it was her home, that indicates she's the firstborn. All right, so she's doing what a firstborn does. You make things for the guests. It's proper protocol. Make a meal, wash their feet, make them comfortable. You know, find whatever TV show they want to watch, whatever. Get them a current Jerusalem Post. So, what I really like about it though, now as I've come to understand the story, is she challenges Yeshua. I mean, in our language is, what are you doing? Come on, man. Tell her to help me. I mean, that's intimacy. When you can challenge Yeshua to his face, that's intimacy.
Yeah.
I'm not at that place yet.
Yeah.
I walk on eggshells around him. She's like in his face. Come on, man. Command her. Tell her. I'm going, wow. That is intimacy. I wish I had that intimacy.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll get to that place at some time in my life.
Yeah.
He wasn't put off by it, he just went, lady, come on. Yeah. You know, she just wants to be near she just wants to hear me out, you know.
Yeah.
But see, here's the other things we don't understand. According to Psalm 24:1, which says the earth is Adonai, the owner, all the stuff and all the people, it's not Martha's home. It's Yeshua's home. she's not the host. Yeshua's the host. We forget that. It bothers me when I go to places and they invite God into their presence. And I'm going, no. That's narcissism. This is his earth. He invites us into his presence, not the other way around. We don't invite the Holy Spirit here. The Holy Spirit invites us. And we respond. Or we should respond. That sort of thing. Here's the thing that I've gotten from this message now. We all have Miriam and Martha in us, both. We're called to serve, and we're called to listen. All right, so I travel a lot. I have a car, but I have no mechanical sense whatsoever. If my car stops, I pull over, I open the hood, and I just look at the engine. What? Pretty cool. Yeah, there's that. Don't know what it is. Then I call a Martha. They're called a mechanic. And they come out, and now I'm the Miriam. Oh, what are you doing there? What does that do? Oh, I didn't know that. All right? So all of us have this gifting, this talent that Yahweh's given us, and that's our Martha talent. And we're called upon from time to time to use it. And we should, and do it faithfully and well. And then there's times, and sometimes we have to make time for it. We're to be a Miriam, we're to sit and listen. But in any case, we generally have to do both. We can't be one or the other. All right? So we don't need to judge one as bad and the other good. No, we're both of those. And that's what he's telling us. Now in John chapter 3, we have the story of Saint Nicodemus. And he comes to Jesus by night, which is a metaphor for all of us. We all come to Yeshua out of our own darkness. And it says that Nicodemus is a ruler of the Pharisees. In other words, he's the guy with all the letters after his name. He's the educated one. He's probably knows the first 5 books of the Bible by heart. He's memorized many of the Psalms, many of the prophets. The rabbis come to him, and whatever his decision is how he solves their questions. He's read Chumash. He knows the writings of the sages and all that sort of thing. But he comes to realize, because he doesn't lie to himself, he's come to realize that with all that education and all that experience and all that knowledge and all that understanding, he still can't see the kingdom. And he's like, what's the point of all this if I can't see the kingdom? So he comes to Yeshua, which he must have perceived or heard at least enough testimony from others that this man can open your eyes. And of course, Yeshua tells him that you have to be a second born. And of course, Nick takes it literally, and I gotta enter into my mother's womb and come out that birth canal and get spanked on the butt, and I don't want to do that again. And I'm like, it didn't happen to me. I was so ugly when I was born, and the doctor slapped my mother.
Oh my goodness, you got jokes.
So Yeshua says, Nick, come on, Nick, you know, you gotta be born of the water. That's your mom. You know, every mom, when she's ready to give birth, her water breaks. You gotta be born of the water, because without being born of the water, being a firstborn, you can't ever become a secondborn. But then you gotta be born of this ruach, translated spirit, but the Hebrew word is wind.
Yeah.
And then he goes right into it. You hear the sound of the wind, the ruach. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know where it's going. And so is everyone who's born of that wind. Right?
Wow.
Which indicates to me, none of us should be predictable.
Would you like down, Benny?
Religion,
I like it.
the big focus of religion is to make us predictable.
That's true.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I know what you're thinking, I know what you're gonna think. No, if you're born of Ruach, the wind, you don't know what you're gonna think tomorrow. He's gonna lead you what you're gonna think.
Wow.
So if you're a firstborn, you can't see the kingdom because it's clouded by judgmentalism. But if you become a secondborn, now your function is mercy. Now you can perceive the kingdom. Now in Colossians 1:18, Paul brought to us this tremendous cosmic understanding. Yeshua is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might have preeminence. So now, being the firstborn from the dead, righteous judgment has been restored to the universe. So now, whose function is it to be merciful? Huh? Ours.
Body of
We're
Messiah.
the ones who say we're born again. We're the ones who say we're secondborns. It's our function to show mercy. Makes me wonder why there's so much judgmentalism in the church. When our function is mercy. Well, we don't want people getting away with sin. Hey, nobody's getting away with anything. Be patient.
For sure.
Be patient, he says.
That's right.
Yep.
All right, vengeance is mine, says the Lord, I will repay.
Wow.
Who are we to stand in judgment of anybody?
Right.
We're not in that place. We may not agree with them, we may not like that, whatever they're up to. Show mercy. I'm gonna tell you this honestly, nobody in this room is going to hell for showing too much mercy.
Wow.
No one. And it's time we do it as the body of Messiah. We're the ones out there ranting and raving and protesting and marching and all this crap, and I go, yeah, they don't see any mercy in us. Why would they see any mercy in Yeshua? So the time has come for you and I to function as the secondborns. He'll come back. He's the righteous judge. He'll set everything correct. Everybody who's deserving of something will get it, whether it's praise or something negative. Everybody will get the right thing they deserve. You and I, look for opportunities to share mercy. And remember, mercy is new for us every morning. Don't give away used mercy, leftover mercy.
Wow.
Good.
When you
manna.
get
Like
up in
manna.
the morning,
Yeah, like
the
manna.
mercy you've been shown has new mercy smell. Determined to give it away all day till you're done with it, so that tomorrow you have a new, brand new mercy inventory to give away.
It's good.
Give it away every chance you get.
Wow.
Every chance you get. Become a person. Wouldn't it be wonderful to die and have somebody write on your tombstone, this was a person of unbelievable mercy. They showed mercy whenever they could. Wouldn't that be so cool? That's what you were known for? I think we could make that a goal and go for it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you very much.
Yofi.
Yeah.
You can ask questions now?
You can ask questions. No political questions. I don't do politics. I'm a citizen of heaven. I don't give much of a crap what's going on here.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Seems like all nonsense to me.
I know, yeah.
Well, since I wrote down my questions.
Okay.
That's her.
So I'm gonna go in the manner in which you said it, I think.
Good.
I don't know, I was kind of all over the place here. But one thing that was kind of, I wasn't sure of was when you were saying, that in 1 Corinthians 7, when you're talking about the marriage, that the wife can basically, cover her husband and bring him into salvation. And so when Yah sees them, he only sees one. And then then as we continue to talk, you said, but when they divorce, which, you know, we know that divorce is something that man insisted on, but when they divorce, he now sees two. So therefore, they no longer have that, covering. So could you explain to me again, what do you mean by they no longer have that covering?
Well, now they're two again. After the divorce, they're no longer one. That's
No
one
covenant.
of the tragedies of divorce, is they're no longer seen as one. And because they're two, then the unsanctified one is unsanctified. It's not covered.
But then the children, what happens?
The children are still covered by the sanctified one because mercy triumphs over judgment.
So, what you're saying is if there's a woman and a man, and say the man is sanctified, and they divorce, then she's no longer sanctified, but he still is?
Yes,
Oh, okay,
he's still the believer.
okay.
Believing is what sanctifies you.
Right.
Right.
But in this case, you're saying that the woman sanctified her husband, and so when they divorced, she was still sanctified and he was no longer.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happens when, I can't remember how it says it, because I don't believe in divorce, so I don't really study too much about it, but when they say that, when you divorce, that the woman can never marry